So, good evening to everyone who's come here. I welcome you all to our online series of Manan. And today we have with us Studio Untag, who will be talking to us about crafting affordable luxury and serving the common man. So, to give a brief introduction about their studio, Untag is a unison of two contrasting architects, Gauri Satam and Tejesh Patil, who have come together to craft a Mumbai based interdisciplinary design studio since 2015. Both are graduates of our college and they have independently worked with reputed firms in India, assimilating their creative learnings before starting on their own in 2016. Through their experimental practice, they wish to lend their service to every strata of society, till the very grassroots level. They have constantly been questioning the current trend of most affluent architects, catering mainly to the rich while prioritizing aesthetics over rationale. And untaxed scale of projects varies from single homes to cluster housing to institutions to eco resorts pan India, while having participated and won some international competitions too. The studio has received many prestigious design awards like the IAB's Young Designers Award in 2016, Trend's Most Sustainable Project Award in 2016, for their overly simple, sustainable, and cost effective work. And their work has also been published on esteemed platforms like Arch Daily, Archello, The Better India, and Architectural Life. So I welcome you, sir and ma'am, to our talk today. And without further ado, I think we can start now.
Firstly, thank you for giving us the opportunity, calling us on this beautiful talk series. I think more than presenting our work, we would really like to interact with the students of JJ, and we're really looking forward to that session. So we'll quickly move through our work. We would just like to show some of the projects that we've been doing. So we'll just not waste much time and share the screen. Cool. So to start with, let me just time ourselves. Okay. Uh, cool. So as Shruti has briefly mentioned, I'm Gauri Satam. This is Tejesh Patil. We both are graduates from JJ. We graduated in 2008. So that's around 12 years back. So, after working with some good firms in India, we finally came together in 2015-16 and have started our own linen studio here. So, which is called Studio Untagged. So, I would like to start with a small picture of us during our college days. So, that's both of us somewhere near the workshop area trying to paint the bricks or something. I don't know. I don't even remember. But that's a memory that we share with the college days. So from there, we are here today talking to you guys. So hopefully, uh, we expect a lot of you also in another 10 years to be talking to another batches 10 years junior to you, showing some more pictures like these. So to start with our practice, basically the ethos of our practice is very simple. We like to respect climate. We like to retrospect the context in which a project is placed. We like to make a project more ecologically as well as economically sustainable. We like to be as native as possible, but naive at the same time. We've always questioned the whole idea that why a lot of the architects happen to just design for the rich, because when we see the magazines that we refer to in our library or we go online, we see all these flashy projects, and we often think that yes, architects end up designing only for the rich, and those are the projects that we see normally. So then who will provide the service to the common man? I think that's where we as architects come into picture, where we need to provide our service to every strata of the society. So providing affordable luxury is something that we both really believed in, and we worked towards it since our conception as Untagged. And that's how we are looking forward to serving the common man. And finally, through all our work, we try to keep our projects as simple as possible, because that is one of the important steps towards affordable luxury, is what we thought. So today we're going to present you guys 6 of our projects. 3 of them are built and executed, while 3 of them are ongoing or competition projects, so that we could take you through different scales, different types of projects as well in our portfolio. To start with, we'd like to present our first project, which is called Vrindavan. So just a glimpse of the project which we are going to show you guys. So this is basically a small farm stay somewhere in Konkan in Sindhudurg. So this was designed for a retired couple from Mumbai who had a farm back in Sindhudurg with full-grown mango, chiku, cashew trees, and they wanted a very small insert within this grove of theirs. So we'll just take you quickly through how it is placed. So that's the Google plan, and you can see where the house sits. The house sits somewhere here, and it's a dense grove of mangoes, cashews, jackfruits, spices, and all the regional varieties found there. So when the client first came to us, this is the kind of site that they gave us, full of chikus and mango trees. And that's the kind of view that you get from the side of the Sahyadris on the back side of the house. Uh, so you can see the Gaganbauda range. If anybody is from Maharashtra or from Konkan will know that range. So a very small, simple sketch which we make in class in our college days, how the grove is, and there was one dead mango tree which we found, and we thought, so that's the dead mango tree that you see here. And what we did is simply inserted a house, removing that dead mango tree and just plucking a house within that grove. That was a very simple idea that we came up with. A very simple section made by Tejesh. You can see how we've made the house sit along the slopes of the site. So trying to optimize by placing the house slightly on the higher terrain so that you could overlook the canopies of the trees on your property as well as beyond your property. So now that's how the house sits kind of in the middle of this little grove. The picture has been taken from the other side of the property, and you can see some of the mountain ranges that happen behind the house, where the house kind of becomes a foreground, which sits within a dense green canopy network, and you see the mountain ranges of the Sahyadris behind. So, like we said, a simple insert within the grove. That's the very simple plan of the house. So the plan is as simple as this: a veranda, which are the transient spaces. Yeah, the veranda, which is the transient spaces here. Then the living room and a bedroom, and the kitchen is kept separate. So that was like a very simple plan for the house. So a small little isometric of the house, how it is structured. And this is the actual manifestation of the house. So from a 3D to the actual manifestation, that's what we wanted to show you as students, that what you conceptualize, make sure that you try and get as close as possible to what you have conceptualized. So again, some references. These were some of the sketches that we made while we were designing this house. We wanted this house to be extremely tropically sensitive. So, giving large overhangs, learning from our traditional village homes, how these large overhangs kind of protect the houses in our tropical regions where, the body of the house needs to be protected from the sun and the wind and the rain. So that's what has been done very sensitively to this house. So taking that sketch back into a picture, you can see the deep overhangs and you can still see a lot of glazing, but it's all protected. None of it is exposed to heat or sunlight directly. Again, trying to understand the topography of the region, trying to respect the site contours. So we've literally stepped our house with the contours. And the same you can see as the built manifestation of it. You can see the house stepping down along the slopes. A section of the house, and trying to in the tropics that we live, it's really nice to have nice linear structures instead of making very heavy double loaded functions, because the simple reason being cross ventilation. Cross ventilation is very, very important in our tropics. So that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to kind of keep two functions apart and insert a small court in between so that your spaces are nicely cross ventilated. And the built manifestation is something like this again. So we've tried to use a local stone, which is called Chira or laterite, which has been sourced just 3 kilometers away from the site. So I don't know if you guys know the concept of embodied energy. So basically any material that has been sourced locally or from a radius of say 5 kilometers or something will have a very low embodied energy basically. So the material is not doesn't have any large transport costs or manufacturing costs. So this chira, which is extremely local to the region and it ages beautifully in the region. So it basically acts like an earthenware, like a matka in the region, which keeps you cool in from the inside. So we've gone for the very native region, very native material, a robust material, and it literally helps us to keep the temperature of the insides almost 4 to 5 degrees cooler. So yeah, so that's kind of the built manifestation where some of the private spaces are more solid in nature with very small openings, while the public spaces of the house, which is the living room and the veranda, are much more open and connected to the property. So these are some of the veranda spaces which we've conceptualized. Also, the wood that we've used here is recycled wood. So a temple nearby was getting toned down. So we literally bought that wood from them and upcycled it for the house. And the furniture that you see has been again recycled from the clients themselves. Some furniture that they wanted to discard from their Mumbai house, we've just upcycled it simply. So that's how simple the house is. And you can see how it connects to the surrounding. Bare minimum furniture. These beautiful terracotta clay tiles, like what we call as a Bangalore tiles, help in maintaining the temperature. So they have natural air gaps between them when they are laid. What happens is the hot air kind of rises up and kind of escapes through these Bangalore tiles. So these traditional elements of our vernacular homes have a beautiful reason behind why they were used and why they are used even today. So we as architects should listen to them, should listen to this language of vernacular architecture and try and borrow whatever we can, maybe not replicate it exactly, but borrow certain elements, try and understand why they were done in a certain way. So yeah, so that's how literally the house sits within the grove. Just few more details. That's how the house kind of responds during the evenings. So this house is not about how it looks. It's more about what it looks at and how it feels once you're inside it. It is about a seamless connect between the modest abode and this 15-year-old orchard, which is lovingly not nurtured by the clients. So that was our sentence for this small project that we showed. This is one of our earliest projects. So the second project is a house in a Gauthan, so which Tejesh will be taking ahead.
So this is one of our recently completed project. It's not very far from Mumbai, just 70 kilometers away. This house is all about aspiration of a common man who has lived his entire life in a village, and he has that desire to build a dream house which will be more modern in nature. Um, so that's the overall context of this project. The red spot which you see is the plot, and there's a reason why we named this project Gauthan, house in a Gauthan. Gauthan means the inner core of the village. So this is the overall context. It's very compact plot, approximately 5,000 square feet, and has existing houses on 3 sides. This client is a retired teacher, school teacher, and as well as farmer. He's very closely associated to his community. So we had to strike a balance between making the house more participative to the community as well as reclusive. So as the overall context, you see site, during site visit, we noticed that we have 3 challenges. The plot actually opens towards the west. So we have to deal with the heat from the west. The village road was Kacha road. So, dust was a problem. And of course, being a plot right on the road, privacy was a problem. So what we did is basically we pushed the house towards the back side, which allow us to create a screens in vegetation as well as in flash blocks in the front of house, which kind of address these 3 issues. So this takes care of the screen in the vegetation, and in concrete flash block takes care of the heat from waste, dust, and it gives adequate privacy to the house. We had to plan this house with the introvert looking spaces. So that's the overall, strategy in the planning. We have planned central courtyard. So your living room, entry veranda, kitchen, all of the spaces happens around the courtyard. We call it as angan in a local language. We have another courtyard in the front, which basically takes care of the other problems. So that's the overall plan. You enter the house courtyard, you get into the veranda. Veranda is more extrovert-looking space from where this farmer villager is able to interact with his community. Then living room kinds of open into a nice courtyard. There's a dining space. There's a kitchen on one side. All of the bigger openings are kind of opens into a central courtyard. So this overall, and then we made this courtyard as a evergreen courtyard. So throughout the year, the temperature of this courtyard remains 3 to 5 degrees down compared to the ambient temperature what we have outside. So none of the bigger opening faces outside, which gives adequate privacy as well as keep the harsh heat away from the house. Multi-purpose use of a spaces is something that we have explored in the house. So you see a dining space, which actually is a library space also. It has houses, puja space inside it, and it becomes a space for village ladies to come together and chat. So that's the first floor plan where a common bathroom is shared between 2 bedrooms. So these are the sections which kinds of explain how it sits and how the screens are kind of buffering the spaces, how the veranda is kind of participative with the main street. That's the inner courtyard which remains shaded throughout the year. So this is what we had envisaged while designing, and this is what we have built. So you can see the existing village houses around the house, and this house kind of sits like a modern house in between the existing houses. That's the veranda space and the front courtyard. And this is how green it has become. These are the happy clients. So this entire material for civil construction has been sourced from the radius of 3 kilometers from this plot, and the remaining finishes material have been sourced not more than 25 kilometers. So this is kind of we try to limit the carbon footprint of this house. This is how the courtyard was imagined, and this is how it looks now. It has a beautiful champa tree in between. We have explored flash bricks, jalis in the house, which kind of keep your spaces cross ventilated, yet gives you enough privacy. This is from the neighbor's plot, and this is how it looks now. The cost efficiency was achieved by few of the surfaces were kept as is, so we kind of save huge amount of cost in painting. You can see the texture wall here, which are kept as is. So again, amount of plaster, all those other finishes have been saved. This is how we achieve cost efficiency in the house. The slabs have been kept under non-plastered. We have directly painted it. Again, this is a beautiful texture wall that we have, which we haven't painted. Yeah. So third project is again very much close to Bombay. It belongs to a professor who is actually a biology professor and stays in village. Again, he had dreamed, of having a modern house, but the only constraint that he had given is the budget, limited budget. So this is how the plot looked like before we started construction. During the series of interaction, we realized that he's very landscape enthusiast, and we realized that he's already started planting the trees before the start of construction. And this is what happens, after we just finished the project. The plot was entirely green on all sides. We had a beautiful mango trees and bougainvillea. So again, compact plot. So we placed the house at the center here, and we kept the space on the left and right open. What we have done to achieve the cost efficiency here is we kept the planning of the house very compact. The gray portion which you see are the habitable spaces, and the light gray portion you see are the verandas, storage spaces, which kinds of keep the inner spaces, the important spaces such as living room, away from the heat. So in this section you can see we have a veranda integrated on the west and east side. So even in the morning or evening, the harsh sunlight doesn't touch the living room. He has a lifestyle. He lives in a lifestyle where he doesn't demand for air conditioning. So by keeping buffer spaces around the living space, and by making the spaces ventilated, we were able to keep the temperature down in the main spaces. When we speak about creating affordable luxury, the simple thing that we have done in this house is to make a double-height veranda on the west, and we have integrated a water wheel, which I'll show in the picture. So this is how the plan looks. 1 and 2 are the verandas where a water feature has been integrated. This is the living room, and a common wall kinds of separate the private and public spaces. So which ensures the enough privacy to the bedrooms. This is how the first floor plan looks. And that's the section that we have a veranda on both sides. And there's a double height veranda. So here you can see that double height veranda, which actually kind of gives a grandeur to the overall humble house. This is how we have integrated the water body at the entrance. Again, simple finishes on the interior part. Plastered wall, which have been painted with muted color like gray, with the vibrant artworks on it. So again, it doesn't demand to have a heavy furniture, or it's just the basic things that we have done in the house with the white walls. So that's the pergola on the first floor. So that's a east veranda which he uses in the morning, which kinds of overlook to his remaining part of the plot. This is how we have kept the staircase simple and minimal. A simple stone, you instead of laying it as is, if you convert it or lay it in a different pattern, you can create a magic within the same material. Again, wood has been recycled from his old house. There you can see the full-grown mango trees once the house was up. Yeah.
So what's important to understand in this project is we as architects, however low the budget of our project might be, we can still control the aesthetics of the house. It's, proportions are still in our hand. That is one of our biggest tools. So even if you don't have a very big budget for your projects, but the aesthetics or the proportions is still what you as architects can control, and that can even transform the look of your project. So a house need not be laid with Italian stones always, or to be cladded with some very expensive materials. A basic play of proportions, of tweaking of the length to breadth proportions to the height proportions can change volumes of your spaces, and these are some of the elements which we try to capture through our concept of affordable luxury. Now, further moving to the fourth project, which we want to show you, it's called a tiny house. This was basically a competition project floated by, I forgot some online community. So the whole idea here was living small, but living at all. So the idea here was, again, a farmer as our client. This was more like a hypothetical project that we've come up with, but the idea of empowering a farmer. So the idea of building your own house, living in it, as well as earning out of it. So the concept was something like this. This house was as small as just 250 square feet. Can you imagine, as small as 250 square feet? And this house, the whole concept was it's a modular house, it's a movable house. You can literally put it on a truck and carry it around. That was the whole idea. So probably the idea here is to empower the farmer in a way that he could station this small modular house on his farm while he's farming. He could actually stay there. He could even host city dwellers like us here and actually earn out of it. And probably during the days of his harvest and when he wants to actually sell his produce, he could actually carry this over his vehicle and park this in the city or in a smaller town and actually sell out of the same place. So it's like a multi functional small little house is the whole idea that we've conceived here. So that's the small sketch of the house, like a small, two small pods. One is the public pod, one is more of a private pod for the house, connected by a staircase. Very simple drawings. So like almost like a 12 feet high volume for a living space, which also transforms into the kitchen space, which drops down and becomes the decks for the house. While you have a small little bedroom upstairs and toilet below. So a very simple plan, and that's like an extruded 3D and how it is to be made using the local materials as much as possible. Um, and that's how we've conceptualized it. So the house could literally open in all directions and be a part of the farm. A more multifunctional, multi-usable. So literally the stairs can also transform into your storage spaces. So there's a small table where, you know, probably the farmer's kids could also study. A small bed upstairs, and then this small unit is literally transportable, you know, so we've actually put it on a small truck and you know it can be actually transported. So that's the whole idea here. So something hypothetical but looking towards empowering our farmers. So the next project we would like to talk about is a competition we did for the Serendipity Trust. So Serendipity Trust is basically, they are doing a lot of art projects in Goa, in Delhi. So this competition was about designing a school of crafts for the local artisans of Goa to empower the artisans of Goa basically. So when you go to Goa, what do you see? You see only the beaches and you know the shacks, and so it, although it still has a very rich culture to it, a very rich um, um, architectural language to it, but it doesn't ever come across. We don't know who are the artisans of Goa and what do they sell. So this was more like promoting the local arts and crafts of Goa. So we thought if you want to promote the local arts and crafts of Goa, why not the build form be an actual manifestation of promoting arts and crafts of Goa? So why can't the local craftsmen, which is also the builders or like the what would you say, the kadiyas or the you know the ones who are the chira kamgars, the masons, who are also the craftsmen of Goa. So we thought let us give them an opportunity and let's craft a craft center. So we'll quickly go through this. So the idea was to design an affordable, replicable, easily buildable module for an arts and craft center. So they had not literally given us a site for this. The brief was, so the site would have been anywhere. So now our design had to address that aspect. So a simple, so some of our ideas here were that the build form has to be an exemplar. The experience should be about building, learning, and earning for the craftsmen, using native materials, embracing tropical climate, apply regional construction techniques as much as possible. So in a way, also promote the local craftsmanship and try and promote the vernacular architecture of the region. So also create opportunities for the natives in this way, and then reinstate the Goan art, which is kind of lost right now. And create again simple replicable modular planning so that more of these arts and craft centers can come wherever required. So the idea of fitting this arts and crafts anywhere, irrespective of the site, we came up with the idea of 2 pavilions. So adaptability became a very important aspect of this planning. So irrespective of the the size of the site being the proportion being a square or a rectangular or an odd shape, our design would fit in any of these sites. So that was the adaptability which we showed in plan. The second adaptability which we showed was in terms of the section. So Goa has a terrain which is flat, or it could also be contoured in some portions. So adaptability in section is something which also we looked at. further trying to make the project as climatically sensitive as possible, so that whichever orientation it is oriented, the house would still be very climatically sensitive. So that was our idea. So basically screening the entire project from all sides, so that irrespective of the orientation it is placed, it will still be a pleasant ambient space to be in. So that was the whole idea. So this we kind of achieved by having some bamboo screens towards our east and the west side, which we show you in the design. So these bamboo screens kind of literally become, so these are the bamboo screens that literally become like the, they kind of let in the breezes, but break the heat and the sun, and also become nice green filters to look out. So if you see a small section, like beautiful cross ventilated spaces with nice courtyards in between, integrating the local native trees in it, having a water body so that, the breezes flow over it and cool the air. And further, we'll quickly run you through the plan. The plan is again very simple and modular. A series of shops further down to the second wing, which is the second pavilion, which is like a bigger pavilion where more people could congregate, and like more open veranda spaces. These transient spaces, if you've seen all our projects till now, are very, very important in our tropical climate. So these transient spaces are where most of our ancestors have spent their lives, and they love spending their life in these veranda spaces, because they are the link between our built and the unbuilt. And these are the spaces which, especially in these post-COVID times, we all really look forward to sit in, and be secure yet be a part of the outdoors. So these are the kind of spaces we as architects should be looking to promote in tropical homes or tropical projects. So that's the upper floor plan, again flexible, and this both of them kind of the ground and the first floor are woven together through a beautiful amphitheater kind of a space. So set more drawings, we just run through it quickly. Some more elevations. So that's the amphitheater that you see, and a small exploded 3D which shows you all the materials which are coming together. And these are some of the visuals which we've prepared for the project. So that's the small amphitheater, that kind of like a stepped amphitheater, which kind of connects you at different levels, which can be occupied at different levels, and could also host a small workshop. The water body, which kind of ties around Pavilion 1. So some of the shop areas, and these are the bamboo screens that we were talking about. And if you see, most of the spaces are through and through with jalis, so that, these are nice cross ventilated spaces, so that the indoor temperature is nice and ambient throughout the year. And these are the bamboo screens we were talking about. So all these materials are the native palette, other than probably the metal, but which is the structural element which would be required. So that's about the Arts and Crafts Center that we had to show you. We also made a physical model of it. So yeah, today we can do a lot of laser cutting. So we've made the most of that and try to do this model. So, making physical models is very, very important for us as architects. Yes, today we all are using 3D models. Yes, like 3D software like SketchUp, Rhino. But when you actually make a physical model, it helps you understand the scale of the project much better. You can relate it much better when you see the project at eye level. Actually grab your model up and see through how do the spaces feel like. You can actually walk through the space when you actually have a physical model with you, So very important is what we feel. You should be making more physical models. This is more like a polished model, but study models also help. And that's how we presented our project, and we were the co-winners here for this project. So coming to our next project, which we would love to show you guys, and it's a very sensitive project, which will be present to you by Tejesh.
Yeah, so the project is very close to my heart, because it's just like 4-5 kilometers away from my native place, and we are happy that we'll be breaking the ground soon for this project. Through our passion and profession, we are contributing something to the tribal community over there. So that's the approximate location. It's like a 75 kilometers away Mumbai. The blue portion that you see is the Tansa River, and the school actually sits right at the bank of Tansa River. And we kind of mark the floodplain of river, which you see as a white line, and the village happens to be at the back of the white line. So flood happens every year, and this is what the school looks like after flood, and this is like every year situation. So they fix this, next year same thing happens. So
So these were some of the heartbreaking pictures that the teachers actually shared with us. Can you imagine a school like this? Have any of you seen a school like this? Can you imagine going to a school like this?
yeah.
So, and imagine after the floods, it's the students who again come back, get the cleaning done, and be a part of it. So,
Yeah. So NGO over there contacted us, what we can do for this school. When we visited, we could literally see the flood line, the entire the stage was underwater. The school was shut for some time, but we realized that, it's a beautiful site that we have. Existing building was there, and a large playground was there next to it. So that's the overall context where we have existing building, school building, existing spleen, few structure which you were gonna use as a toilet, and full-grown trees next to the playground, and again you see the Tansa River on the south. So we kind of did SWOT analysis where we understood the strength, weaknesses, what are the opportunity that we can create, and instead of threat, we studied limitations. What are the limitations? So again, this was the funding was a problem. Then how do you manage school construction when the school is running? So all those things were there, which we kind of studied through that analysis. Um, so taking you quickly through the design strategy that we applied for this project is we understood the context. So we have existing school building, a 5 feet high stage, a playground, and a toilet structure on it. So we thought, what are we going to do with the existing building? So, we consider that as an asset. So instead of, demolishing and, throwing away the debris, we thought, let's reutilize everything that we get after demolition. So we kind of opened up the building, we retained the plinths. The site has stone quarries around it, so we are going to get free soil for the filling. So we kind of filled it with soil around it. We are going to use debris to build these plinths. So we kind of form a courtyard in the center, and classrooms happen to be around the central space. So we kind of save also trees. So we have a beautiful courtyard in the center. Classroom happens around it. We kind of connected classrooms through this passage, and we negotiated level with a solid plinths. A basic simple planning, and this is how it looks in plan. So that's the actual plan where these are the classrooms on the two side. We kind of retain the existing plinth which can be used as a stage. The walls of the existing building will be used, and we'll put a roof on top of it. This can become a nice assembly hall which will be kind of open into a big amphitheater kind of space. And we'll have important spaces such as science lab and library on the second floor. So these sections are kind of summarize, the overall strategy of the planning strategy of the building. So we are raising it by 7-8 feet high plinth, but what are we going to do with the plinth? So we thought, we will have underground tank which will kind of store the water. So whatever water that we are collecting through our roof, a passage roof, will be storing that. The surplus amount will be discharged into the water. So this is the center thing that you see. This basically pours the water back into the soil. The higher plinth also will be used to form earth air tunnel. Basically, what we're going to do is we are going to bring the air from this solid plinth. We'll cool it down a little bit, 2-3 degree, and we'll pour it through floor, and we kind of let the air escape through the roof. And central passage will be flat roof, and grow your vegetable kind of concept will be explained to kids, tribal kids. Again, this is a sectional thing which kind of explains how, multi-purpose spaces are important. So the stage is actually existing plinth. We have formed the amphitheater kind of space here, and the assembly hall kinds of completely open towards your amphitheater. The challenging part is how do you build a school around when a school is running. So this is not a empty plot where you do it in like one go. So we had to phase it out into different ways. So with retaining the building, we'll build a plinth around it. We'll take up the classroom in the first phase. As the funding comes, we'll take down the another room. We'll build again another classroom wing and a science lab on top of it. Further, we'll take down one more room. We'll have a staff thing going on. And lastly, we'll take down the remaining portion of the building and we'll build fourth phase. Uh, so that's the overall, expression of the school, where the plinth is made of a black basalt, which is again locally available. It's available in radius of 3 to 5 kilometers. We'll be doing stabilized earth blocks, which are not big bricks, and we'll be doing a nice mud plaster, which is like a known technique to the tribal community over there. We're kind of using Karvi, the one which you see on the top. Karvi is actually monsoon fauna which is available in the forest.
It's a forest weed which you find in a particular season during the monsoons, and it's the tribals of this region who actually build their homes out of these weeds. So it's a traditional technique which we are trying to incorporate in today's day and time.
So instead of having fenestration, we'll have a screen in Karvi and we will let the air pass through it for a cross ventilation. So this is a central slab, which is again filler slab. Will reduce the amount of concrete that we'll be using for this project. And by having a flat passage, we'll grow our own vegetables on the top of roof. So this is how the courtyard looks. And that higher plinth is negotiated by steps, which can be used as the amphitheater steps. So again, key principles for the designing of the school is adaptability and flexibility in the planning. We can move the blocks around as and when required. The sizes of the classrooms are flexible. We have completely recycled the material. We have reused it. We are encouraging to use multifunctional spaces. Passive solar strategy is something which plays important role when your classrooms are not air conditioned, and then we kind of engage into a low cost material and low cost techniques, and yet making it more energy efficient.
So further, very quickly, we'll just run you through some of our other projects. We're not going to talk about it. We're just quickly going to show you some of the pictures. So that's conceptualized and that's happening on site right now. So if you see, most of our projects have these tropical spaces, the very important transient spaces, like I said earlier, verandas, balconies, which become the gray spaces between your blacks and the whites. So your built and the unbuilt. So these are the spaces which a lot of us, our elderly, even the kids, love to be around, and they should be an integral part of our tropical designs. So these are the kind of study models we were talking about. Very important, very raw, but very important to understand mass and void for a house, understand the volumes of the house. Another eco resort that we're doing, so like a small massing model, how all these blocks sit with respect to the site topography. Some variants we did for a client in Kerala for a house in a rubber estate. This was a competition entry for the Tata house design, where it was, again, the concept was about going green, about growing your own food and going low on your carbon footprint. We were also conceptualizing some nice green apartments with studio apartments, like optimizing on your room space, like living small but living it all again, the same concept. House somewhere in Konkan. We also love to do furniture designs, product designs. So yeah, and just quickly running through some of our publications. We were recently published in an international book called Beyond the West, where a lot of architects we look up to, we've been featured with them. Uh, this is something very interesting thing we did recently. So I don't know how many of you guys know Grazia magazine, but it's like a fashion magazine. So recently, post-COVID times, they kind of took up 4 young practices from all over India, and they asked them to conceptualize how the new living would be post-COVID. So we had to come up with a house design for the new normal. So this is the kind of house that we designed for them, like a house with a beautiful living facade of itself, a house with a lot of greens, with filters of biodiversity, where the birds come, the butterflies come, and they are a part of your house, and a house that actually changes with seasons. So it gives you the freshness. Even if you are indoors, you are still a part of the outdoors. So also, we made a small mood board for them, taking furniture from different organic stores or some nice sustainable stores and putting them together. So that's that feature. And what we really truly believe is the most difficult thing to achieve in design is simplicity. So I think the simplest of the designs are the most difficult things to achieve. So that's and apart from architecture, we also do a lot of other things. So we have conducted some rice farming workshops so that we try to make the city dwellers like us, who are pretty much ignorant of how a farmer's day happens at a site. So we've actually conducted these rice farming workshops for some city dwellers. So you can see some families enjoying a 3-year-old kid who's there in the farm and getting her hands dirty. So we also enjoy many other things. So this is one of the paintings done by Tejesh of JJ. So he loves to do watercolors. So this is again of the tree that he painted recently. I like to do some abstracts. So these are some of my abstracts. So apart from architecture, we also do a lot of other things. We travel a lot extensively, but again budgeted, just like our homes and our concepts. So that's about us. And these are again some lovely, beautiful watercolors that are done by Tejesh of our projects. So that's about what we do, what we are. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. That was an excellent presentation and very simple, as you said, very simple yet excellent projects. And they were very touching, actually. And it's great to see how architects can actually design for the people. And that's what is important at the end of the day. And so now we actually have Mishra sir also with us. So if you would like to say a few words.
Hope you guys didn't go off to sleep in between.
No, ma'am.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. How are you? You're on mute.
You are on mute, sir.
Thank you, Gauri Satam and Tejesh Patil, right?
Yes.
sir.
See, I saw your presentation, all the projects, right? From the first project to the second project, and beautiful volumes of spaces. I think I have 2-3 things to say. Yeah, I think it was quite a learning and enjoyable time that I spent with you, looking at all your 7 projects and also other projects, whatever you may call them. But I would be extremely proud of both of you, because I think you have taken architecture to the common man. I think that is the greatest achievement. Second thing is that, you have helped clients not only with their design, but also you have helped them with their design briefs. I think this is very nice, where you help them understand the volume of spaces, the proportion of spaces, and how do you enjoy architecture while you do it. I think this is one of the very few architectural achievements which I have seen in the recent times. The third thing I like about is use of local building materials, sensitive to climatology. And third, convincing the client to let them know that whatever you're doing is good for them. I think you must have enjoyed a lot of confidence of client to be letting you do what you're doing. But your Goa Art and Craft Center is so beautiful, so nice. I think I would love to go there if it was built the way you designed it. And the way you have handled spaces, the way you have understood the scale of space, expresses joy in your architectural examples. Very simple, very nice method to express the ideas of design to people. And the most exciting part I can say, is the letting people in the internal parts of our country, in the rural areas and other places, feel what architects can do and how important architects are to them. I think you have taken architecture profession to the common man in a very nice way. I like your Gauthan house. I do not know where the Gauthan is. Where is the site of that Gauthan house?
It's in if you know this town Wada, so it's like 15 kilometers away from that town.
I love the way you have actually used geometry rectangles and given scale to the sloping roofs. You feel that you should go to this place and stay there for some time. It actually invites you. It is not attractive, but it is very, very done to the human scale. And I would love to stay here for 3 days, just to be there. So
sir,
I think
just to add to it, what we kind of missed talking about is the aspirations of a common man. Very important. The aspirations of a city dweller is to go and be nestled in a nice, probably like a Mangalore style sloping roof house and a more earthy house. While a farmer, his aspirations are very different. He wants the life of a city dweller. He wants a modern house, So even if we tell him, please go for a Mangalore house for your next house, they'll be like, no, we want a modern house. And you cannot say no to them, right? Because everybody's aspirations are there and you have to respect them. So understanding their brief while coming up with a solution which is extremely sensitive to the region is important. So striking that balance is very important. So that's what we do.
But I think
convincing clients is very difficult, but we try our best.
But you fulfill their aspirations very well to the scale of the requirement of the site. And your school project at Tansa, wonderful. When is it coming up? When are you starting?
It was supposed to break ground, April. But post due to the situation, we'll have to wait for another 2 months again.
Yeah, so they are parallelly looking for funding. So as and when they get fundings, so they're looking for Rotary Club for their fundings. So as and when they get their fundings, they will be doing one block of it. That is the whole idea. That's why the structure is not one monstrous structure, but smaller buildings which are tied together through a courtyard and through a passage, so that they can come up at their own pace.
Yeah, which is very good even for the students, who come there to study. They will feel very good for coming there and studying there. There is a NGO called Pratham, which actually is considered to be authority on primary school education and secondary school education. And there is the gentleman called Madhu Chavan, who is basically a teacher of chemistry in Ruya College, who runs this Pratham as an NGO. I would definitely like to know whenever this project starts, I will get this Madhu Chavan with me, and I would like you to show this project. Actually, I fell in love with your presentation. I think your presentation was so simple. And you're right, Gauri, most difficult thing is simplicity. It is difficult to be simple. Absolutely, I completely agree. But simplicity has its own heights of standards. It has its own beauty attached to it. And I think in a very simple and a subtle way, you have enjoyed architecture and delivered it. And I think this is what is the success related to all your projects. I would love to visit some of your projects if I get time, but that will be after January. I would love to visit
Sure.
your Gowtown house. Maybe
Sure.
I'll come to Wada, don't worry. I'll come there. And I would love to basically get first year students and second year students with me so that they can also enjoy your rural connect, which you're
Sure,
trying to
sure.
bring in. Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you for your presentations. I think this was so wonderful for our students. And I would be very happy if, these students of second year or third year, while they are in their vacation mode, actually go and work with you for 3 days or for 5 days, where we are actually planning to do like this. Tejas, if you want, you can basically do your watercoloring as a demonstration while students are visiting you for 3 days. So we
Sure.
don't want people to come to this classroom anymore. We want our alumni to work, keep on working, and our students see you working. So you will be actually demonstrating your practice to them, and they will, in order to help you learn out of it. So I would rather call you to our college to deliver a lecture. I would send 5 students or group of 10 students to visit Wada when your school project is going on. I think they will end up learning more. And the style of bamboo jallis and brick jallis, fantastic. I think I would love it. You would have seen them being made, but I think our students should get an opportunity to see it happen. Yeah. So you please be in touch with Vaibhav or I don't know, anybody else whoever tells you to get in touch with. Yeah. And we will try to come. Maybe I will come with students to one of your projects. Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
So you're
And
most
it
welcome.
will be a great pleasure to
Also,
see
so
it
what
live.
we feel is it's very important for the students. So yeah. So I think it's very important for students to, like when we were in college, we used to always look up to West as our examples, as something, oh wow, beautiful, we should be doing something like these guys are doing. But rather, the students of today, or rather the younger minds, they should be rather looking at more tropical examples of our region, looking at works of Geoffrey Bawa, of Laurie Baker, and trying and studying the local traditional techniques, maybe not using them as is, but tweaking them and using in today's modern times,
Evolving
so
them.
yeah, so rather than going for extremely big glass surfaces which are climatically highly insensitive if they are not shaded like BKC, going for something which is more native, which like you must have seen in our projects. In Konkan we use chira, in like in Gautan we used basalt. We also use the locally sourced bricks. In some other project, like we are also using karvi, which is native of that region. So understanding the local fabric is also very important, which the students should also understand. So wherever your sites are, try and study the native geography, the topography, the culture, and try and get that into your architecture. I think that will give a sense to your project. And very important is connecting to your immediate environment. Trying and understanding the biodiversity of the region. Yes, we are architects, but more than architects, we are also human beings. We have to be extremely sensitive to what we are designing, because end of the day, we are taking something from the nature. So you have to be very conscious of what you're taking from the nature to build your projects. So be very conscious and try and give back to nature as much as possible. And whatever site aspects you have, be it rocks, be it existing trees, value them like anything, and make them a part of your site planning. Very, very important. So yeah, that's something which we believe in.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I mean, completely in agreement with whatever you're saying. But Gauri, you should also sketch. Your sketching is also superb. You should not stop sketching. Tejas was good, but I think you were also good. So I think you should also sketch out. The idea of this 3D model is better than 3D software walkthroughs, 100%. I really like that. 3D walkthroughs are virtual and they can be misleading, actually.
They're more
So I think
deceptive.
model, huh?
They're more deceptive. The
They're
physical
more-
model doesn't lie. It's actually portray the real proportion of any project.
Yeah.
And the way you have negotiated your plinth in steps at school, I think this is fantastic. It gives a playful environment, and it gives a very
also-
good.
Yeah, the students of JJ, I mean, by the virtue of they being in JJ, it's a talent by itself, So
Yeah.
instead of following again the West for seeing, oh, they do such flashy renders, I think the connect which which the kids from JJ have, they have a hidden, they have an inborn talent of being very good with sketching. The connect of your creative mind to your hand, to your paper is very important. So don't ever lose it. I'm sure
Yeah.
all of you guys are excellent at your handwork, so never lose it. So
You see,
but-
students are never good or bad. Students are always good.
Yeah.
This is a very underlined statement. Students are never bad. Students are always good. It is what we do with students, that is very important. Unfortunately, I have stopped teaching. I am not able to teach because I am spending more time with non-teaching staff and getting a lot of administrative work done so that college can at least run. I don't know what I must have taught you. Maybe I must have taught you design in second year, Tejas.
Yeah. You taught us town
I-
planning also.
Acha, okay.
you taught us history,
History.
importantly. I think we remember all your history classes and
Yeah.
yes, town planning.
Yeah. So,
Yours used to be the only classes which had 100% attendance.
oh, really? This I don't remember, but anyway, thank you
In spite
for
of
the
the subject being history.
Yeah. But I'm so glad that I was able to see your presentation. Thank you, Weber, for reminding me. Today was actually entrance exam of the art, BFA art, all over Maharashtra. So it got over by 5, so I could join by 5:05. So I missed your first project by 5 minutes,
Okay.
which Gauri was presenting. But I'm sure a lot of our students are excited to ask questions. So I have taken a lot of time. I would request all the students to interact with you and give me some time, both of you, so that I can come with students one day
Sure.
at any one of your projects. And then we go around this project just to understand the scale. Your scale is beautiful. The scale is to the human scale. And I think this is what architecture students can understand, irrespective of the lecture they attend. Yeah. So thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. And I now request Vaibhav to ask students to ask questions to Gauri and Tejesh. I'm around, so
Sure,
I'm
sir.
still
Thank
listening
you.
how you answer. Yeah. पण तेजस तुझी vocabulary चांगली झाली. आता तू काहीतरी बोलायला लागलास.
Yeah.
Because I remember Tejas was a very
Shy
quiet,
professor.
very quiet, but I'm so glad that you are speaking so well and
I'm still
explaining
like
your
that.
projects.
I'm still shy, sir.
But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so let us ask students to ask questions to Gauri and Tejas. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So the audience can they can unmute the mics and start asking questions. And if not, they can also post it in the chat box.
No, we'll be happy to answer. Please
Yeah.
talk. And
Chat
don't
box.
feel any question is, अरे ये पूछो या नहीं, कुछ भी पूछ लो, it's okay. We were also students 12 years back. So,
If everyone could turn on their videos, I think it will be more interactive also. So
sure.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Please call us by
Yeah.
our names, Gauri
Oh,
and
sorry.
Tejas.
Yeah, those were really beautiful presentation, and I really liked them. Very amazing. I just had one question, or maybe we can say a discussion type. Ki, whenever we start designing anything for any college assignment or for any competition, our focus usually guides us to designing something which will be catering to some maybe higher middle class or privileged people, while we miss out on designing something for underprivileged people or those who are actually being in a what we can say grind of the society or of the hard work. So how can we think about those aspects while in the beginning of the design?
Are you asking about an academic project?
No, like in any project, like can you just give us some insight so we can keep that in mind while designing anything?
See, irrespective of your client, be it a rich person, a middle class person, or a poor person, your approach has to be the same. Okay, all of them are equal. We are architects. We are here to cater to all of them. Okay, so first and the most important thing is to understand the client's brief. Very, very important. What are his aspirations from the project? Okay, you are an architect, fine, you will design and you will go, but it's the client who is going to stay there or use that space for the rest of their life. So kind of keeping your little architect ego aside is very important. Okay, very, very important. We as designers think, yes, we are the gods and we have designed something and it has to be exactly like that. But what is very, very important is always to get your client on board. Try and understand their perspective, their way of looking at the project. Maybe sometimes they may be wrong because they've not seen the world, but there's nothing right or wrong, but their perspective might be different because they've not seen the world. So it's your responsibility to educate them, be it a poor man, a middle class man, or a rich man. You know, your expertise is something which you should be sharing with them, and gradually evolving the brief with them, you know. And I think understanding the local climate, the culture, the background of the client, all of these play a very important role in designing your brief or how you go about even executing it. What are their comfort zones? What is their lifestyle? Are you trying to upgrade their lifestyle or completely change it? You know, so apart from just designing, there are many aspects to ideating a project. So I think that, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So when I saw the projects that you have made, I actually understood that we usually directly jump to the designing part and not really understand what's happening. So yeah, true.
कुछ भी
Um,
पूछो.
I actually wanted to ask, so for at least for me or many of my classmates, when we started out in first year, these different forms and, having very abstract shapes and everything is very exciting or, attractive for students. So were you always inclined towards making simple forms and for like vernacular stuff, or did this inspiration slowly come as you started practicing?
Actually, it's just, in my case, it's just the opposite. I was a big fan of Zahadid when I was in college. I used to really look up to her structures. And even a lot of my designs were extremely fluid, okay? A lot of corners, and I used to get questioned a lot, whatever I did. Never orthogonal. But as you guys get out of college is just the start point of your education. Understand that. You know, that's just when you end your college, that's just the start point of when you start getting your actual educational knowledge of architecture. It's about whom you work with. Very, very important. Okay, I'm just slightly deviating, but for all of you guys, it's very important once you're out of college, whom you plan to work for the next 3 or 4 years will define what you become eventually. Very important. So irrespective of what amount you're fetching as your salary, what's more important is what content you are getting, because the first few years post your architectural education are also your education, because you'll be learning a lot. So when I was in college, yes, I fancied all these projects of the West, like I mentioned earlier. But when I stepped out into the real life, I worked with Bimal Patel for 2 years. After which I worked with another firm called Spasm Design, which is based out of Mumbai, which is a small firm. Bimal Patel's firm was a 200 people firm. Then I moved to a firm which was just 10 people. But then you get to know the real challenges, you know, how these forms are beautiful. There's nothing right or wrong about using forms. There's nothing right and wrong in architecture at all. Okay, so if you see Bernard Shumi's work, it's all form based. If you see Zadid's work, it's form based. They are architects, they have their own reasons for doing things. But when people like us who belong to an extremely middle class background, okay, we don't have such influential clients. We started from zero. We don't have any godfathers. Okay, we come like most of you, I'm sure. We have started on our own, you know, and our clients were people like us only, who are middle class people, who probably maybe MIT or Yeah, those people. So those were our clients. So now you cannot give them fancy forms which cost you a lot of amount, but they might not be functionally effective. So then you try to make the most out of the functionality first. So there's nothing wrong experimenting with forms, but it's your brief that should be driving you whether you want to go with forms or not. And maybe we've not yet experimented, but we are open to experimenting, and that's why our firm is called Untagged, because we don't want to associate our design with any particular language. So maybe next time we present, we might have some corners in our designs and some fancy lines, so you can look up to
No, but
it.
whenever we get brief, we never have that preconceived notion of having certain form for this particular project. It's always your local context, your what your brief is calling out for, budget, what is client's requirement, what is locally available, or what you can source, what you can reuse, etc., etc. All those parameters plays important role. So when we are in school, everything is like rosy for us. You can play around this form, these but that should not be the case when you go into the pragmatic world. Arriving at a form has different parameters which guides you to have that particular form, be it a fancy or be it a simple. Though always there will be always a guiding force which takes you towards the form. So I do not agree with the fact that we should have a preconceived notion about the form that okay, the particular building should have this. We should just use the guiding force and arrive at the form.
And there are multiple ways of approaching design, and it differs from designer to designer how somebody wants to go about designing. If some architect feels that his building should look like an egg, fine, that's his start point. And there's nothing wrong about it. Okay, it's his way of doing things. So you guys have to come up with your way of which way you want to go. So there's nothing right or wrong. Like again, I'm saying in architecture, but what's important is the rationale behind doing it. I think you should have your reasons for doing it, and it should not be whimsical. That's the only thing which we would suggest.
Yes, that makes sense.
Hello.
Yeah, Vaibhav.
Yes. So in addition of that itself, I wanted to ask that as you mentioned, going vernacular, using the local materials and playing with that, the form. Recently, I have encountered like there is a trend going on, like a parametric design. Everyone is learning Rhino, Grasshopper. There are all around workshops being conducted, and we have been told that the future of Indian architecture is mostly about parametricism, dealing with AI softwares, uh, modulation, simulations, and everything. So, uh, if everyone is approaching toward that, how should we maintain the knowledge of catering to how you said the clients, which the common, and making the structures which are yes vernacular, but how we are using parametric as well. Like it's been a mixture of both.
See, parametric design is a beautiful tool, and it should be explored. Like AI is the future, like you rightly said, and we as architects should grab that opportunity and understand it in the way like there are tools now, like there are softwares like Ecotech and all, where however dynamic your building is, it helps you assess the climatic suitability of that building. Even if you're going with a nice fancy design, some curved walls for your like parametric designs for your project, what is more important is not just the looks of it, but is it helping in some way towards making your building more climatically sensitive? Are your curvatures helping you shade certain surfaces? What is the use of that parametrics? Is it just aesthetics, or is there a function to it as well? Are they your natural overhangs in some way, or are they becoming your roofs, like the walls are getting integrated as roofs? Or are your chhajjas different in different directions, so that they cater to the sun angle, which is different in the south, in the west, in the east, and the north? So would your depth of the chhajjas be different, and can the parametrics tell you that can integrating softwares like Rhino and Grasshopper with Ecotech and trying to make an energy analysis of it, tell you the efficiency of that building, then I think that's the way forward, I feel. What do you
Yeah.
think?
So parametric is a wonderful thing, you know, you should going digitally like that will always help. Simulation is beautiful thing. It's just that, you know, we should not be doing it forcefully, you know, for the sake of doing it or for the sake of making it aesthetically beautiful, we should not do it. You know, that's the thing.
So for as students, I think aesthetics plays a very important role to all of us. Yes, but I think what's also important, or rather more important than aesthetics, is the functionality. So form follows function. I hope all of you have heard this. So I think the function of the space, giving reasons for doing a certain kind of aesthetics. If you have the reason with you and you're sure of it, then there are no two ways about it. You should go for it. Definitely.
Yes, and also in extension of that, like as it was mentioned in your presentation, the small sketches and then using applying softwares a little bit and then making a whole presentation. So uh, is that what the process like? You mainly focus starting on software or sketches? What do you prefer the most? I know that mostly you prefer sketches, but what would be the experience like starting with the software?
See, actually, it's both of us have different ways of approaching design. He loves to start with sketching. I love to start with SketchUp. So, there is no one way to things. You know, your generation is 12 years behind us. So, your way of probably
They are 12 years ahead of
exploring,
us.
yeah. So, you guys are actually 12 years behind us, but probably 20 years ahead of us in terms of technology, right? So the way you would explore your designs could be directly in forms of softwares like SketchUp and Rhino, where yes, you can directly probably extrude a block and see how it looks, make it sculpt a bit and see how it looks, how it performs in terms of its energy efficiency. So you guys are blessed with these tools. So you should be making most, and if you are comfortable with it, nothing like it. It's your, but keep sketching because somewhere your mind connects better with your hand to your paper. Something will come out different, and then you can always incorporate it back in your Rhino or in your SketchUp. But don't ever do this कि Rhino पे कर दिया और ये मेरा हो गया. So the process of evolution of your design is very important. You often happen to fall in love with your designs. Okay, for most of us. Okay, but I think to the most difficult thing to do is to step out of that comfort zone and start afresh or go ahead. Okay, evolve. Evolution of design is very, very important because once you start evolving, your design is getting refined, it is getting much more functional, it is getting it has much more meaning than it was what you started from. So don't fall in love with your designs, question it, and importantly, like it's two of us, likewise you should always be sharing your designs with your friends, take their opinions, show your designs to your parents, take their opinions. A layman's perspective is also very important, you know so ask your parents to be in the shoes of your clients, whoever they might be, and tell them to think from that perspective or from their perspective. Take perspectives from people, understand their way of looking at your project, and you will get some new enlightenment, we're sure. So don't be confined to you and yourself. The world ahead is about collaborations, you know
So,
so
you know, any approach is good, Vaibhav. So, you know, some like in my case, you know, I don't completely agree with Gauri. You know, I have a little bit old school technique that I put. So for me, you know, all this SketchUp or all the Rhino on all softwares are software which basically enhances your design. But if you have to put your thoughts immediately with your intuitions, I think hand sketching is a great tool. And because you know with just H, you know, with pencil and paper, you know, you'll be able to put something quickly which comes to your mind, which otherwise you won't be able to do it quickly on as efficiently as your hand sketching on softwares. But none of the approach would we call as a wrong approach. Any approach is good, it's just that, you know, it's a process that you should follow.
So today you guys are blessed with things like tabs, so where your pencil is actually what do you call it? The what do you call that? Pen.
Stylus.
Yeah. So like a Wacom or something. So you can literally sketch and then alter your sketch as well. So and literally these sketches, I'm sure 5 years down the line there'll be technology where sketches can directly become your build forms. I'm sure that's going to happen very soon. So, but that connect of your own hand with the paper, be it digitally or on paper, it's very important. It gives you some clues. So never stop sketching. And you know what we feel like what Mishra sir said. Uh, if you guys should yourself look back to some of your digital renders and maybe some of your hand sketches. Somehow the hand sketches would emotionally connect with you much better. Somehow look back, because we have been doing so many digital renders and we do hand sketches as well. But the emotional connect is much stronger with your sketches, and they convey the idea much beautifully, much clearly than sometimes what the digital softwares fail to do.
Yes, thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, you see.
Yeah, so I had a question. So, since the title of this talk is Serving the Common Man, so I would like to ask that, and since you mentioned like your designs, they cater to the brief that the client gives and their aspirations. So, what kind of feedback or response have you got from the client?
So, see, importantly, if you fit the project within the client's budget, there's nobody as happy as the client. So, which is the biggest task for any architect, is to fit within the budget. So, some of our projects have been done at extremely tight budgets. And the question you asked was, how does the common man feel once he or she has inhabited that space? I think all our clients are extremely happy, and we are even happier because when we go back see these projects, the projects are further shaping up in their own direction, because now the client has started adapting to this new setup, and they are now living it as per their terms, and they are further enhancing it. So some clients are doing some sort of beautiful landscaping which is further connecting the house with the outdoors. Some clients have added their own artifacts or their own different layers to it. So, like the farmer's house, they've got some of their older utensils or some of their older farm equipments, and they've placed them in their in this small courtyard now. So these redundant or older cultural decor items they've got back into their house, so which has enriched the house in their own way. We are also learning from our mistakes, by the way. So whenever we go back to our projects, what's very important is to learn from the clients what are the problems with your project, what are the problems they are facing as with the house. So we are also gradually learning. So we've also made a lot of mistakes, but we try not to make the same mistakes again. So that is also an important learning that should come from your client. And yes, so that's
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any more questions? You guys unmute and speak.
Hello.
yeah.
Hello. Ankita, are you going first? No, you go first. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. First of all of the projects that were presented today were so beautifully conceptualized and implemented. It was great having a look at them. What I wanted to ask is, in colleges, for our semester projects, we usually have fictitious clients. But in actual practice, one has to consider the aspirations of the clients as well. So how does one balance the design aspirations that the architects have to offer to a given project as well as the client aspirations? And how was your experience with it?
Very important question. See, eventually the clients are the people who are going to occupy the space that you've designed. Okay, so they are very important. Their views, their opinions are very important. Because if you design something that you fancy and end of the day they go and stay at it, and if they are not happy, then what is the point of designing something fancy just for photographs? Doesn't work, right? So understanding the clients and their brief is so important. Okay. So what we do as architects is first go to them, understand what they're looking for. Some of the clients have their own conceptions, and they always look up to their neighbors or something that they have seen in the vicinity, and they say, "अरे उसके जैसा वो कितना अच्छा था, ऐसा कुछ कर सकते हैं क्या?" They've not seen the world, so they don't know कि something can be done better than that. But you should understand what they are hinting at, what they want. Probably bigger openings, probably a better connect, probably the kitchen needs to be connected to the living, or maybe they need a puja room in a certain direction because they have some spiritual, their own, like Vastu. We are not taught in college and we don't believe in Vastu. But if the clients do believe in Vastu, we can't tell them stop believing, stop, we're not going to design as per Vastu because we don't believe in it. So here, these are the smaller aspects where, the clients' inputs are very important. They say कि अरे पूजा room ये direction में होना चाहिए या please उधर रखो. So we try and adhere to it because eventually they are going to stay there. If you don't put it there, tomorrow if something happens, they'll say कि अरे यार ऐसा हो गया आपने बराबर नहीं किया. So to keep them happy, so these are the smaller ways of keeping them happy. And if you want to convince them over something which they are not liking, then you give them a rationale behind it. Give them a reason why you're doing certain things in a certain way. Second important thing which we give to our clients is always options in terms of designing, which we didn't mention, but because it's two of us, most of the times we come up with 2 design variants for our clients, or sometimes 3 or 4 as well. So we always give the clients a choice to choose from. We don't impose our design on them directly. So a lot of the times what happens is the clients say, "अरे मुझे इसमें से ये अच्छा लगा, उसमें से वो अच्छा लगा," and then what happens is we come up with a third design, which is most of the times much more refined than the first 2 designs, and it has all the inputs taken from the clients, and then they are kind of happy. Okay, their inputs have been incorporated, and then they look forward to it. If they understand that they have been valued. So the client being on board throughout the process of designing is very important.
That answers that. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Ankita, do you want to go in?
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, like, most of your designs were oriented towards a common man who was living in a village. But what if that common man's moved to a city, and how would you fulfill that person's demands? Because in fourth year we'll be having projects related to housing, like mass housing for common man, and like in an apartment or a society. So what would you suggest for us? Like, how should we approach it in terms of social interaction also?
Right. So guys, what's very important is it's a very important question, designing for the common man in the cities. So we've designed these kind of projects as well. We've not actually designed apartments as such. We showed you one of them, but we've done interiors for the common man as well, which a lot of you guys tomorrow, once you're out, you will be doing a lot of interiors in Bombay. You guys are from Bombay. So then what you need to understand, what is the need of the hour? At what price do people buy houses in Mumbai? Now what is the square feet rate at which a person buys a house? It will be nothing less than 15,000 rupees a square feet till anywhere till Borivali, right? So that's how much a person is spending on one tile, which is 1 feet by 1 feet, and you as architects have such a big moral responsibility to make complete justice to this person's money. It's a person's hard-earned money where he has invested probably 80 lakhs by taking a loan and buying probably a 1 BHK for himself in Borivali or Kandivali, or maybe 40 lakhs somewhere in maybe Virar, So that 40 lakhs is a big value for somebody. Now you as architects, how do you design for this person within the limited space? So what is today's need of the hour? Understanding multifunctionality. How do you make multifunctional spaces? How do you make temporal activities work within those spaces? What is the use of that client during the daytime, during the evening time, during the night time? So in one of our apartments, what we did is, it was a young couple with a small kid and they had a 1.5 BHK. What we did is very simply converted that half BHK into a sliding folding system and integrated it as a part of the living room. So a very small living room became like a slightly bigger living room. And whenever they wanted, that small niche, which was a half bedroom, could also become an independent bedroom whenever needed through the virtue of the sliding folding doors. So flexibility of planning is what you guys should be looking at as today's need of the hour. Again, like you said, community housing. So what is the need of today's community housing? You guys are only looking at housing as just having people in. But imagine what is the infrastructure that goes behind having that much of mass housing. Okay, so many people are going to come and stay there. So that will lead to so much of water usage, electricity usage, food usage. Imagine what you could do with this whole community housing. What if you could create self-sustainable housing communities? What if you could encourage your clients or your the residents to grow their own food? What if you could promote concepts like urban farming, and integrate it as a part of your group housing? So think of the future. Think what are the needs of the future. Think of something which is low on your carbon footprint. So you have a very big moral responsibility there, is what I feel. Also, the water you're using, can it be recycled? Can it be used to can it be upcycled? So these are smaller things which you should be looking. And of course, for projects like community housing, we should be looking at projects like Charles Correa's Artisans Village. Such a beautiful project, and it shows you the hierarchy of spaces that he's created. Now, how do you adapt that in today's day and time? This hierarchy could be probably created in the vertical way, if not horizontal, because we are on lack of space. So how do you create those connections at multiple levels? How do you engage people at different levels? So these are certain things. So these engagements could be your community spaces, which are probably your urban farms. You could have vertical farms in cities. Think about it. So nothing should stop you from thinking or ideating, and you can go wild because you are currently in college, you are an academic, you can dream whatever you want. So
Yeah.
have the freedom to dream big.
Also, adding to Gauri's thing, optimization of brief is really important. So you have to understand somebody's life. If a client is there, who is going to spend maximum time of his into public spaces, say, living spaces or in verandas or balconies. I think the prime importance should be given to make the spaces bigger rather than making your bedroom bigger. What we do in our projects also, when we interact, we are try and understand the lifestyle of a clients, whether he's going to spend time is in balconies or living rooms or bedrooms, and accordingly we assign square footage of area. So here if we are talking about making something affordable, you have to give a respect to every square inch when you design something in the city. So one option could be to go for a compact size bedrooms and make your other spaces bigger to have better lifestyle accordingly. Incremental development is also one more thing which you can keep in mind, that particular person has this amount of money with him right now. He could build x amount of spaces for him, and later on after 5 years 10 years down the line, he has a better lifestyle, or in terms of finances, then he can always go for incremental development into his unit.
So multifunctional furniture could also be the future of these houses. While you're doing these community projects, think what if your bed could become your sofa, it could become your study table, it could also become your wardrobe space. So, and all of this could just go on to become the wall later on and just free up your entire floor. So this is also where the creativity of an architect lies. Your house tomorrow, when you're designing your community project, your each apartment could be as small as 10 by 10 feet. That's it. Which a common man could afford, which you and me, once we graduate, we can probably afford. Yeah, चलो 10 लाख में हम शायद ले पाएंगे कल जाके 5 साल बाद. तो चलो 10 by 10 का तो क्या हुआ? But you as designers can make it work. How do you efficiently make it work? That is the challenge, and that is what we have to look for as architects. So always your challenges are your opportunities. Don't forget that.
Yes,
Hello,
sure.
ma'am.
Thank you for the
Hello,
answer.
ma'am.
Yes, Uday. Can you hear?
Yeah, I wanted to ask that saying that the client's happiness is very important for an architect. Architecture is being anthropocentric than being ecocentric.
No, your question is whether anthropogenics is more important than ecology. Is that your question?
No, because like I'm asking, like we are making buildings, means architecture is we are constructing buildings for the habitation of human beings, mostly human beings, na. So isn't that and anthropocentric then, that view
So,
towards
Have you guys heard of a term called biophilic architecture? Any of you? Okay, so there's a concept called biophilia, which is an innate human tendency to immediately connect with nature. Okay, so I think we as architects need to, design architecture that is biophilic. So biophilic is something where you are making a human happy as well as you are making nature happy. So how do you establish and strike that balance between man and nature is the bigger question, and that needs to be addressed very importantly. So like you rightly said, we humans are very anthropogenically centered or very human centric, very mean. We only think about ourselves. Yes, that's very true. But try and, like we said, minimally harm the environment. So understand that whatever you're going to build has a very large ecological implication. Whatever you're going to build, imagine the amount of quarrying that is going to happen to get that stone. Imagine the amount of forest that need to be to get that kind of a wood. So whatever, that's why we say build simple, build minimal, and try and harm the nature as least as possible, and try and give back to nature through your architecture as well if you can.
Hi, ma'am. Hi, sir.
Hi.
Sir, so I had a question. Going through all of your projects, it was really fascinating to see how the simple planning functions in a way that it caters all the needs of the client, right? But one more thing that appealed to me was that keeping the aesthetics simple, yet the whole project came out to be a little unique. I mean, for example, if we give the if we take the element of sloping roofs or the use of jalis, which is a dominant element of many of your projects. So how do you use that element to be dominant and create a simple yet aesthetically beautiful frame, you know?
So you know what? We as architects, we always see the building from the externals, the look of it. Okay. What is very important is to think how that space is going to be experienced. Imagine yourself standing within the project that you've designed. You have a study model with you. Imagine you are there and imagine you're walking through those spaces. That will help you to understand the scale better of your project. That will help you to conceptualize better, because we see end of the day a client never sees his project from an aerial view, right? A client never will go to the extents of his boundary and look back at his house. He will be within the house, so the comfort of him, the experience of inhabiting that space for us is much more important than how the house or the structure looks. So the spatial complexity, or rather the spatial simplicity, the spatial planning is very important. So the whole experience of moving from a 8 feet space to probably a double height volume, to probably taking a stair through the double height volume, to again going to a 8 feet space, to a 10 feet space. So you have to imagine yourself walking through these different volumes. You have to play with things like your openings. You don't have to give typical beams everywhere. Somewhere you can even skip your beams, have inverted beams, and give full height openings. While somewhere where you don't really want the view, you can just give simple slit windows. So you still have a bit of the view, but it's not that much like what we did with the house in the Gauthan. If you see on the periphery, the building, the windows are very small, very thin. They connect, but minimally. The bigger windows look inwards towards the courtyard that we've created. So you have to be very smart how you handle your openings as well, how well you protect them from the elements. That is how well you protect them from the sun, from the rain, harsh rain. So these are some very important factors which kind of govern our designs.
And it's not only about how your structure is looking from outside. It's more important what you are experiencing from your project and what it's looking at. That's also equally important,
which we many a times as architects completely forget. So next time, whatever you're designing, imagine you are inside there and you are taking a walk through. Do that. That will really help you. Also, make your parents go through it. Imagine they are inside it, and you get a very different perspective of looking at your project.
Only if you're designing home.
No, it could be everything.
Yeah, I think it's totally answered. Thank you.
Welcome.
I think we're now running out of time, and this was a really nice discussion. I'm really happy everyone asked all your questions, and I think we should end now. If you guys have anything else to say, then we can have that, and then we can go.
Shruti,
Yeah,
one
I
last doubt.
think you should
Ma'am, one
never
last
stop
doubt.
dreaming. I think that's very important. Never lose track of your ambition.
Ma'am, I
What
had a
is,
doubt. One
yeah,
last doubt.
who has a,
Uday.
yeah, hi.
Same like earlier I said that building means what was that word?
Biophilic.
Biophilic going towards like biophilic architecture and sustainable architecture. Can we say that we are just pushing the deadline, or is it a solution? Is it a solution, or I didn't understand that.
See, we have to be very practical, very rational, okay? We can't stop development, can we? We can't, right? So we have to
Yes.
find a middle way out, So what is the middle way out currently? So that's what we said. You cannot stop harming nature. You have to start probably harming it as least as possible. Having minimal impact on the environment through the build forms that you come up with. And also you could look at productive landscapes or productive architecture, an architecture which gives back to nature. Imagine Mumbai has so much of roofscapes. It has so much of flat roofs. Imagine all these flat roofs actually become gardens by themselves. Imagine you could plant mango orchards on the top of these terraces. And I don't know if you are aware of this concept called urban heat island effects. Read about it. So how we as architects are handling these issues, which we ourselves are bringing firstly into picture. So you guys are the generation who has to deal with climate change. So what are you doing towards it as architects? So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
May I say something?
Sure.
Can I say something?
Sure.
See, I just want to say two things. It was very interesting discussion. I'm so proud about these students. They're asking you such meaningful questions. खूप बरं वाटतं ऐकून, खरंच सांगतो. Very mature questions, and the way you answered was fantastic. I would like you to know that when I was studying architecture in the 80s, I had the opportunity to work with Charles Mark Correa as an intern, where they had just finished the artist village at CBD Belapur. Then I also had an opportunity to work with Uttam Jain, who also did a housing complex, or let us say a housing layout in New Panvel. And then it so happened that when it was designed, when it was conceived as artist village, Correa was looking at artists as a client. And when he was actually trying to do anything for the artists, he gave spaces, courtyards for them to come out of their homes to work on any work of sculpture or painting or any kind of work of art, so that the artists mingle with each other, discuss each other's talents and their experience, so that each one learns from the other and becomes better at what they are doing. That was the whole idea. But it so happened that, in Charles Correa was chief architect of CIDCO, New Bombay, from 1975 to 1980. But it so happened that the politicians then later on said that we want to increase the FSI and change the entire urban form of New Bombay because urbanization was increasing. Now, Charles Correa was the chairman of the National Commission of Urbanization, opposed it. And he said that if you do this to the new city, which I have come up with, I will resign. I will not continue as chief architect. You have to follow what we are doing. But Sharad Pawar did not listen. He said nothing doing. We want to basically look at the people's requirement. We want New Bombay to grow. So in 81, he resigned. And then what happened was, when the project was getting implemented and getting finished, he would go to the site and see that the project that he had designed ended up the way he had designed, because he never let anybody touch it. But today, in 2020, if you visit Artist Village, what has happened is many artists have actually, the grandfather artist gave it to the grandson sold it off. And today, with the increase of FSI, the same house form and the same Artist Village has actually a different character altogether. People have modified it, they have changed it. So one of the very interesting exercises I did in 1997 at JJ College of Architecture, along with architect Harshad Bhatia, was called post-occupancy evaluation. We took out 3 housing layouts, one done by Uttam Jain, one done by Hema Sankalia, one done by Raj Rewal, and one done by Korea, that is Artist Village. And we saw that the way it was conceived and designed by the architect for his client had completely changed the dimensions today. Okay, today the metamorphosis of this housing layout is totally changed. So people's aspirations change with time, people change with time, their requirements change with time, and their character keeps on changing. So what I want all of these students to understand is that as an architect, when you are dealing with your client and when you have delivered your architectural services the way client wanted it to happen with all his satisfaction levels, your job is over. Now you don't have to worry what happens to it. You know, you don't know what will happen to this school. You do not know what will happen to this Gautan house. Maybe the grandson who basically comes to live here in this Gautan at Wada would change it after 10 years. But that is not what Gauri and Tejas are responsible for. The idea is you did at a given time what you could to the best of your ability, to the satisfaction of the client. And that is the success of architectural services. So I think we are designing for people. People change. People have right to change things. They might use the Jali the way we did not conceive it as. And this is exactly what happened at Chandigarh when Corbusier designed 13 typology of houses for every sector. The Punjabis started parking cows and buffaloes instead of scooters and cars, because they said we don't need scooters and cars. We have something else to do. So the way Corbusier and Janere had thought the housing layout should be is not working today in Chandigarh also. So don't worry what happens later. What you should worry is how successfully you have delivered a design project, the design brief for a given client, and enjoy doing architecture for them. You know, this is what I wanted to say. Yeah. So it was a very interesting discussion. It was very nice to listen to all of you and looking at your concerns. But I think a big learning experience for me too. I have attended many presentations of many alumni, and I think, Vaibhav, these presentations are much more interesting than, you know, all kinds of seminars that we do in JJ College of Architecture. I think हे चालूच ठेवा, असंच करत राहा, आपल्या सगळ्या लोकांना बोलवत राहा, हे लोक आपल्याला शिकवतील आणि आपण शिकू यांच्याकडून. सो थँक्यू गौरी, थँक्यू तेजेश. इतर लोकांनाही सांगा आम्हाला त्यांची गरज आहे, त्यांनी येऊन आम्हाला सांगावे, जेणेकरून आम्हाला पण शिकायला मिळतील आणि आम्हाला चांगलं रीतीने शिकवता येतील. Am I clear?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, Vaibhav, for, and thank you. I always forget her name, Thakur, something called what? Ayushri Thakur. Thank you for giving us such wonderful sessions. We really love it. Please continue to do it. Please continue to call our alumni. They are our biggest asset. They will teach us what we were not able to teach them. And I think that's a great learning experience.
Yes, sir, that's true.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having
sir.
us.
It
We
was
are
great
really-
having you, sir.
We love to interact with what we were 12 years back, one of you guys, and we always looked up to a lot of people. And we hope you guys will also be there with us, co-professionals in another few years and doing many, many more wonderful projects than us. So
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who joined today. This was a great session. And we'll see you next.